I discovered Elena's secret on a moonlit night in the Carpathian wilderness, 3 months after our battle with Dracula. When everything changed, we were tracking reports of unusual animal attacks in a remote village. The full moon hung low and heavy in the sky, casting long shadows through the ancient forest. Elena had been acting strange all day, distracted, agitated, and constantly checking her watch. I attributed it to the stress of our mission, but I couldn't have been more wrong. "Adrian, I need to tell you something," she said suddenly, stopping in her tracks. Her voice trembled slightly, something I'd never heard from the usually composed doctor. "There's a reason I understand the supernatural so well, why I wasn't shocked by your transformation." Before she could continue, a howl echoed through the trees. Close, too close. Elena's head snapped toward the sound, her entire body tensing. That's when I saw it, her eyes flickering from their usual green to a brilliant amber. "Elena?" I took a step toward her, but she backed away. "Stay back," she warned, her voice rougher than usual. "I don't have much time. What you're about to see, please remember it's still me." The story she told me that night, between waves of transformation, would change everything I thought I knew about my closest ally. As her bones began to crack and reshape, she managed to gasp out, "Find my journal. In my office. The red leather book. It explains everything." I watched, transfixed with a mixture of horror and wonder, as Elena Lupei transformed into a massive wolf before my eyes. Her clothes tore away as her body elongated, dark fur sprouting across her skin. When the transformation was complete, a timber wolf the size of a small horse stood before me, those familiar green eyes now burning amber in the moonlight. The next morning, I found the journal she'd mentioned. As I began to read, Elena's story unfolded before me, and I realized that my own transformation was not the only remarkable tale of survival against the supernatural. The journal's first entry was dated 20 years ago. "Dear Diary, today is my 10th birthday, and Papa says we're going camping in the Carpathian Mountains. Mikhail is being annoying as usual, saying he's too old for family trips at 13, but I can tell he's excited too. Mama packed her special honey cakes, and Papa promised to teach us about the stars." What followed was the account of a family vacation that turned into a nightmare. Through Elena's childhood writings and later reflections, I pieced together the true story of how Dr. Elena Lupei came to be. The Lupei family, Stefan and Maria, with their children Mikhail and Elena, had indeed gone camping in the mountains. They chose a remote spot, far from the marked trails, where Stefan could teach his children about nature, just as his father had taught him. The attack came on their second night. Elena's childish handwriting grew jagged as she described the massive wolf that burst into their campsite. But this was no ordinary wolf. It was a monster straight out of legend, walking on its hind legs before dropping to all fours to attack. Stefan and Maria fought desperately to protect their children, but they were no match for the creature's supernatural strength. Elena's account of their deaths was mercifully brief, the memory too painful to record in detail. Another close call in anatomy lab today. The cadaver's blood triggered my wolf senses, and I felt my eyes starting to change. Had to excuse myself, claim a migraine. Dr. Popescu is getting suspicious of my monthly absences. I'll need to be more careful, maybe schedule my transformations better. At least the enhanced senses help with diagnostics. I can literally smell disease now, though explaining how I know what's wrong without revealing my abilities is becoming increasingly challenging. Mikhail's fate took a darker turn. As Elena pursued her medical career, he disappeared into the wilderness for months at a time. The last entry about him was heartbreaking. Mikhail came to see me today, the first time in 3 years. He's changed so much. The wolf has almost completely taken over. He can barely maintain human form for more than a few hours. He says he's found a new pack, one that accepts him as he is. I begged him to stay, to let me help him find balance again, but he says he's made his choice. "We're not meant to live in their world, little sister," he told me. "You'll realize that someday." When he left, I knew it would be the last time I saw him as my brother. Katerina remained a constant presence in Elena's life, though their meetings became less frequent as Elena established her medical career. The ancient lichen had taught her cubs everything she could about survival, but she couldn't protect them from having to make their own choices. One of the final entries before I met Elena revealed the true reason she'd chosen to work at the Central Hospital of Transylvania. Reports of vampire activity are increasing. Something is stirring in the old castle, something that makes my wolf blood run cold. Katerina warns of ancient prophecies about the return of the great vampire lord. I've taken the position at Central Hospital to monitor the situation. My dual nature makes me uniquely qualified to recognize supernatural threats, and my medical credentials provide the perfect cover. I never expected to find a Helsing here. When I first caught Adrian's scent, I knew he was different, human, but with something else in his bloodline. Something that speaks to the power of his ancestors' encounters with the supernatural. Perhaps fate has brought us together for a reason. Two beings caught between worlds, fighting to protect humanity from threats they barely understand. Reading Elena's journal gave me a new perspective on everything we'd been through together. Her keen insights during the vampire crisis, her lack of surprise at my transformation, it all made sense now. She'd been straddling the line between human and supernatural long before I entered the picture. The morning after her revelation, I found Elena sitting on the hospital roof, watching the sunrise. She looked exhausted but relieved, as if a great weight had been lifted from her shoulders. "So now you know," she said quietly, not turning around. Her enhanced senses had detected my approach long before I reached the door. "I do," I replied, taking a seat beside her. Though I have to admit, I never would have guessed my brilliant colleague was raised by wolves. She smiled faintly at that. Technically, just one wolf. Katerina is extraordinary. Everything I am today, I owe to her. "Will I meet her?" I asked. Elena's expression turned thoughtful. "Soon, I think. She's been watching us, you know, ever since you arrived in Transylvania. She's curious about you, a Helsing who's become something more than human." The next few weeks brought a flurry of new discoveries. Elena began teaching me about the wider supernatural world, sharing knowledge that had been passed down through generations of lichens. The vampires, it seemed, were just one faction in a complex hidden society. "There's a delicate balance," she explained one night as we patrolled the mountains. Vampires, lichens, and other beings most try to live quietly, avoiding human attention. But there are always those who want more, who see humans as prey rather than equals. Those are the ones we have to stop. I noticed she moved differently now that her secret was out, with a fluid grace that seemed somehow both human and wolf. Sometimes, when she thought I wasn't looking, I'd catch glimpses of partial transformations, her eyes flickering amber, her teeth sharpening, her movements becoming more predatory. The journal's later entries revealed more about her struggles to maintain her dual nature. The wolf is always there, just beneath the surface. In surgery, it wants to howl at the scent of blood. In meetings, it bristles at challenges to my authority. But Katerina taught me that the wolf is not something to be caged or feared. It's part of who I am. The trick is finding harmony between both aspects of my nature. One particularly memorable entry described her first solo hunt. Katerina decided I was ready to hunt alone tonight. The full moon pulled at my blood as I tracked a deer through the forest. Everything Katerina taught me came together. The wind direction, the subtle signs of passage, the patience of the predator. When I finally made the kill, it was clean and quick. I threw back my head and howled in triumph, and from somewhere in the distance, I heard Katerina's answering call. Mikhail joined in too, and for a moment, we were truly a pack, united under the moon. My own supernatural transformation had given me a unique appreciation for Elena's situation. We began training together, learning to combine our abilities. My vampire-enhanced strength and speed complemented her wolf instincts and hunting skills perfectly. But it wasn't until we faced our first joint crisis that I truly understood the depth of Elena's capabilities. A group of rogue vampires had established themselves in an abandoned monastery, preying on nearby villages. We tracked them to their lair, planning to strike at dawn when they'd be at their weakest. What we hadn't counted on was their human servants. As we approached the monastery, we were ambushed by well-armed mercenaries. In the chaos that followed, I witnessed Elena's full transformation for the second time. It was still shocking to see, but now I could appreciate the fluid grace of it. Her wolf form was magnificent. Powerful muscles rippling under dark gray fur, those intelligent green-gold eyes maintaining their human awareness. She moved like living shadow, taking down armed men with precise strikes that disabled without killing. Working together, we cleared a path to the monastery. Elena's wolf form proved invaluable in tracking the vampires to their various hiding places, while my resistance to vampire powers allowed me to engage them directly. By sunset, the threat had been eliminated, and we had our first real victory as a supernatural fighting team. That night, as we tended our wounds back at the hospital, Elena shared more of her story. Katerina always said that being a Lycan was a gift, not a curse. She taught us to use our abilities to protect others, to be guardians rather than monsters. It wasn't easy. There were times I hated what I'd become, times I wished I could just be normal. But eventually, I understood what she meant. We're uniquely positioned to stand between humanity and supernatural threats. She paused, looking at me intently. That's why I was drawn to you, you know. Even before your transformation, you had that same drive to protect, to help. The Helsing blood in your veins called to the wolf in mine. We're both creatures of two worlds, trying to maintain balance between them. The journal's final entries before the present reflected her growing optimism about our partnership. For the first time since Mikhail left, I feel like I'm part of a pack again. Adrian understands what it's like to be different, to carry the weight of a legacy and a secret. Together, we're stronger than either of us would be alone. Perhaps this is what Katerina was preparing me for all along. Our first meeting with Katerina came sooner than expected. We were tracking a series of mysterious disappearances in the mountains when we encountered her, though I suspect she had orchestrated the entire situation. It was a crisp autumn evening, and Elena had been growing increasingly agitated as we followed the trail. Something's different, she kept saying. These scents, they're familiar. We entered a moonlit clearing to find a massive white wolf waiting for us. Even in wolf form, Katerina's presence was commanding, regal, ancient, and powerful. Her fur was silver white, marked with scars that spoke of countless battles, and her eyes held centuries of wisdom. Elena immediately dropped to her knees, a gesture of respect that seemed both human and wolf-like. "Mother," she whispered. The white wolf's form shimmered and changed, revealing a tall, striking woman with silver hair and those same penetrating eyes. She moved with fluid grace to embrace Elena. "My little cub," Katerina said, her voice carrying traces of an accent I couldn't quite place. "And the Helsing who has become something new." She turned those ancient eyes on me, and I felt as if she could see straight through to my soul. That night, around a campfire in the deep woods, Katerina shared parts of Elena's story that hadn't made it into the journal. She was always special, my Elena. Even in those first terrible days after the attack, when the change was tearing through her small body, she never lost her humanity. Where Mikhail embraced the wolf completely, Elena found balance. She has the strength of the wolf, but the heart of a healer. Katerina's tale revealed more about the nature of Lycans and their hidden society. She spoke of ancient pacts, territories marked in blood, and the constant struggle to maintain peace between different supernatural factions. "The world is changing," she told us. "The old boundaries are blurring. Technology makes it harder for our kind to remain hidden, yet humanity is still not ready to accept our existence. We need new guardians, ones who can walk in both worlds." She looked meaningfully at Elena and me. "Perhaps that is why fate has brought you together. The wolf's daughter and the vampire hunter's heir, both transformed into something more than their origins." But our reunion was interrupted by urgent news. Mikhail had returned, and he wasn't alone. He joined forces with a radical faction of Lycans who believed it was time to emerge from hiding and claim dominance over humans. Elena's journal entry from that night was brief but powerful. "My brother is lost to us. The gentle boy who used to protect me from thunderstorms is gone, replaced by something wild and dangerous. But I can't give up on him. I am my brother's keeper, in this form as in any other." The confrontation that followed tested everything Elena had learned, both from Katerina and from our time together. Mikhail's pack had established a base in the same mountains where the Lupei family had camped so many years ago, a choice that seemed deliberately cruel. We tracked them to an old mining complex. Elena's wolf form led the way, with Katerina flanking her and me bringing up the rear. What we found was worse than we'd imagined. They were gathering an army, turning innocent people into wolves against their will. Mikhail had grown massive in his wolf form, nearly as large as Katerina. His once brown fur had turned almost black, and his eyes held no trace of human consciousness. The reunion between brother and sister was heartbreaking. "Mikhail," Elena called out, temporarily returning to human form. "Brother, please, this isn't you." The massive black wolf snarled, and when he spoke, his voice was rough with disuse. "The Mikhail you knew is dead, sister. I am what I was meant to be, pure wolf, unfettered by human weakness." What followed was chaos. The mining complex erupted into a battlefield as Mikhail's followers attacked. Elena was forced to fight her own brother, while Katerina and I held off the others. The sound of wolves fighting echoed through the mountain valleys, a nightmare chorus of snarls and howls. I witnessed Elena's true strength that night. Even as she fought Mikhail, she was trying to save him, attempting to subdue rather than kill. Her wolf form moved with desperate grace, parrying his savage attacks while looking for an opening to reach whatever humanity remained in him. The turning point came when Mikhail had Elena pinned, his jaws going for her throat. In that moment, Katerina's voice rang out, not in words, but in a powerful howl that seemed to shake the very mountains. It was the call of a mother to her cubs, filled with love, authority, and desperate plea for peace. Mikhail hesitated. In that split second of uncertainty, Elena saw her brother again in those savage eyes. She didn't attack. Instead, she turned her head, exposing her throat in an act of complete trust. The gesture reached something deep in Mikhail's fractured psyche. His form shimmered, and for the first time in years, he transformed back into his human shape, collapsing beside his sister. In the aftermath, as we treated the wounded and helped the unwillingly transformed begin to understand their new nature, Elena wrote her final journal entry. "Today, I am truly my mother's daughter and my brother's sister. Katerina taught me that being a Lycan means protecting those who cannot protect themselves. It means finding balance between strength and mercy, between human and wolf. Mikhail lost that balance, but with time and help, he might find it again, and I am no longer alone in this mission. With Adrian, I found someone who understands living between worlds. Together we can face whatever comes next, vampire, wolf, or something yet unknown. For I am Elena Lupei, daughter of Stefan and Maria, adopted child of Katerina, sister to Mikhail, partner to Adrian Helsing. I am doctor and wolf, healer and hunter, human and Lycan. And I am, finally and completely, at peace with all that I am." Mikhail's recovery would be a long process, but with Katerina's guidance and Elena's unwavering support, he slowly began to find his way back to himself. He would never be the same boy who left, but perhaps he could become something new, just as Elena and I had. For I am Elena Lupei, daughter of Stefan and Maria, adopted child of Katerina, sister to Mikhail, and partner to Adrian Helsing. I am a doctor and wolf, healer and hunter, human and Lycan. And I am, finally and completely, at peace with all that I am. Mikhail's recovery would be a long process, but with Katerina's guidance and Elena's unwavering support, he slowly began to find his way back to himself. He would never be the same boy who left, but perhaps he could become something new, just as Elena and I had. As for Elena and me, our work continues. The supernatural world isn't getting any simpler, but we face it together, the vampire hunter's heir and the wolf's daughter, guardians of the boundary between worlds. And every full moon, if you listen carefully in the Carpathian mountains, you might hear our howls mingling with the wind, a reminder that not all monsters choose to be monstrous, and that love, in all its forms, can bridge even the wildest of divides. Thank you for tuning into my story. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to like the video. It helps support my channel and allows me to keep creating more content for you. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to comment below and share your favorite part of the story or any theories you might have. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any future uploads. Your support means the world to me, and I'm excited to bring you even more thrilling stories.